Sometimes small cultural oddities can speak volumes about how a society thinks of itself. In ancient Rome, the family was seen as a microcosm of the state. The father figure was seen as the consul, or king, or emperor of the household. Rebellion against the family king was seen as a pseudo-treasonous act, and his freedom to rule over his subjects was almost limitless. A distorted version of this power dynamic was also true in politics. The ultimate public compliment was to refer to another man, even a younger man, as father. Politically motivated adoptions were also pretty common, even between two men of similar ages. The Senate even had the authority to designate a citizen the father of the state. This prestigious title was awarded to Cicero after thwarting a coup attempt as consul. The Senate could pay no higher compliment. Why am I bringing this up? I want to illustrate how the Romans saw public and private life as mirror images of each other. To be a good consul was to act like a good father. To be a good father was to rule like a good king. This dualistic relationship between public and private life permeated all levels of Roman society. In order to better understand this, I want to talk for a minute about how the Romans perceived time. When the Romans spoke about events from their ancient history, they used a version of the yearly counting system that we still use today. Year 1 for them was the year that the city was founded, and they simply counted up from there. But what may surprise you is that in practice, nobody besides priests and historians really used this system in day-to-day life. The yearly dating system that they used was itself rooted in politics. If somebody was asked what year they were born in, the answer would be something like in the year of Marius and Flaccus. They would list the consuls that served for that year. No number given, just the names. But, without missing a beat, everybody involved would have known exactly what year was being referred to. Think about the implications of this. This meant that the average Roman citizen would have had an encyclopedic knowledge of every consul from living memory. Obviously, this also speaks to the immense prestige of being elected consul in the first place. If you were elected consul, you got to be a year. That's incredible. Imagine if I were to say something absurd, like I was born during President Reagan's 4th year. You would need to track down a political junkie and an abacus just to figure out what I was trying to say. The Romans talked about days in a strange way as well. We are inheritors of the Roman calendar, so interpreting it should feel pretty natural to us, but it doesn't. They would never say anything like the 12th of July. They could have, they had a calendar with that day on it, but they didn't. In practice, they would always place the date in relation to the nearest important public holiday. In this case, they would have said, I was born 4 days before the Ides of Quintilis, which we now call July. So when we combine the date and the year I just used, we get Julius Caesar's birthday, which according to the Romans would have been 4 days before the Ides of Quintilis in the year of Marius and Flaccus. According to us, it was July 12th, 100 BCE. Between you and me, I'm glad we switched to our system. Anyway, what I want to draw your attention to is this. Even relatively small quirks, like how the Romans described time, can tell us a lot about the culture's basic ideology. Political literacy was, by design, a mandatory part of day-to-day life. Romans could not plan for the future or reminisce about the past without placing it in a political, or at least civic-minded context. That, I think, is key to understanding their society.